Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama. First, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Astatara Sata Sri Srila, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Astatara Sata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And my Dandavat Pranams at the lotus feet of my most worshipable Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga. And my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. So yesterday we were reading the Rath Yatra chapter and the verses of chapter Madhya Lila chapter 13, wherein Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is describing the ecstatic dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Rath Yatra festival. You have some problem?
Back.
Oh. Okay. You're okay? So, this point at which we left off is the point where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has begun to express his moods. What moods? The moods of Srimati Radhika. The moods of Srimati Radhika and the gopis. Where? At Kurukshetra. Now, there is the most amazing description at this point in this chapter, not to be missed. Looking to the side. Not to be missed. You cannot find this anywhere else. Where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is telling Swarup Damodar Goswami to recite different verses. Oh, can you open up that window? All the windows are closed because of the air conditioning, so we can reopen the windows in the kitchen also. And we'll have, and also the door, the screen door. This is already done. This one's already done.
It's the temperature's lower.
Kitchen.
Yeah, we could see.
Kitchen windows.
Can I really open it?
They're open? Okay. So, now, the verse that was being recited was Yakomara Hara. This verse. I'm telling the Sanskrit. Yakomara Hara Sa eva hivaras Ta eva chaitra kshapas. This is Mahaprabhu himself singing this verse again and again. And no one could understand its meaning. Out of millions of people, no one could understand its meaning except Swarup Damodar. But also Rupa Goswami was there. Is not mentioning it here in the chapter verses, but at the beginning of the Madhya Lila, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami told this whole story at the very beginning of Madhya Lila. This is like chapter 13. But in chapter 1, he decided, just in case he would not live any longer, he decided to relate this particular pastime. So he's doing it twice, but this second time, he's doing it much more extensively and revealing the internal moods of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, Yakomara harasa eva hivarasta eva chaitra kshapas, te chon milita malati surabaya, prodha kadambani la. Sa chaivasmi tatapi, tatra surata, vyapara lila vidho, reva rodasi vedasi tarutale, cheta samutkantate. This is a young lady who is at the very place on the bank of a river where she first met her beloved, who later became her husband. And in a very melancholy mood, she is expressing her experience of being there in that same place where her heart was stolen. This is a mundane poetry in Sanskrit. So the meaning of this verse that Mahaprabhu is singing again and again and again, this is the outward meaning. But what was his reason for singing the verse, no one could understand, except for Srila Padmanabha Swami. So this is the translation of the verse, and this verse is also in Rupa Goswami's Padyavali. That very personality who stole away my heart during my youth is now again my master. These are the same moonlit nights of the month of Chaitra. The same fragrance of malati flowers is there, and the same sweet breezes are blowing from the Kadamba forest. In our intimate relationship, I am also the same lover. Yet still, my mind is not happy here. I am eager to go back to that place on the bank of the Reva, under the Vetasi tree. That is my desire. So, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is saying that Eshlok Mahaprabhu Pare Barbar. Barbar means again and again. Mahaprabhu recited this again and again. And Swarup Vina Arta Keho Na Jani Ihar. But for Swarup Damodar, no one could understand its meaning. So, Eshlok Arta Purve Karyachi Vyakyan. And I have already explained this verse previously, Krishnadas Kaviraj is saying. Shloker Bhavarta Kori Sankshep Akyan. Now I shall simply describe it in brief. So where is that? In chapter 1, verses 53, 77 through 80, and 82 through 84. There is the description, and also of Rupa Goswami's verse that he composed of Madhya. So, Purve Jaiche Kurukshetri Sab Gopigan. Formerly, all the gopis of Vrindavan were very pleased when they met with Krishna in the holy place of Kurukshetra. Krishnera Darshane Paya Ananditaman. Ananditaman means they're completely blissful when they met with Krishna again at Kurukshetra. And similarly, after seeing Lord Jagannath, just as the gopis are seeing Krishna, so similarly after seeing Lord Jagannath, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu awoke with the ecstasy of the gopis. And being absorbed in this ecstasy, then he asked Swarup Damodar to sing the refrain. So now Mahaprabhu he's actually expressing all these verses that are coming right now in Bengali language, is Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, his presentation of what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was singing and what Swarup Damodar Goswami was responding to. So, Avasheshe Radha Krishna Kori Nivedan, say to me, say Ami, say Nava Sangam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke thus to Lord Jagannath. You are the same Krishna, and I am the same Radharani. We are meeting again in the same way that we met in the beginning of our lives. And although we are both the same, my mind is still attracted to Vrindavan Dham. I wish that you will please again appear with your lotus feet in Vrindavan. So who's speaking this? Who's speaking this? Huh? No, Radharani. Mahaprabhu is Radharani. He's directly Radharani when he's speaking this verse. Actually, he's always Radharani, in the mood of Radharani.
This particular poet, is it Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Radharani, or is he?
Yes, because he's seen Jagannath as Radharani saw Krishna at Kurukshetra, and he's speaking to Krishna. Radharani is speaking to Krishna. This is what Radharani was feeling, and we know that because Mahaprabhu is telling, because he's experiencing Srimati Radharani's moods. That's why it said, when Mahaprabhu heard that verse, his moods of the gopis and of Srimati Radharani were awakened. So he's not dancing. He's describing with his arms. It described earlier that with his arms, this whole dramatic performance he's expressing. And he's singing it. And Swarup Damodar is doing the refrain. But this is coming from Mahaprabhu's mouth, lotus mouth, and from his heart. So, now, you have to think, you're hearing directly Srimati Radharani at Kurukshetra. What are her moods towards Krishna? So she already said, although we are both the same, my mind is still attracted to Vrindavan Dham. And I wish that you will please again appear with your lotus feet in Vrindavan. Here in Kurukshetra, there are crowds of people, elephants and horses, and also the rattling of chariots. But in Vrindavan, there are flower gardens, and the humming of the bees and the chirping of the birds can be heard. Here at Kurukshetra, you are dressed like a royal prince, accompanied by great warriors. But in Vrindavan, you appear just like an ordinary cowherd boy, accompanied only by your beautiful flute. Jai Jai Shri Radha Govinda.
So poignant, huh?
Vraje tomar sange jay sukha asvadan. Se sukha samudrera iha nahi ek khan. Here, there is not even a drop of the ocean of transcendental happiness that I enjoyed with you in Vrindavan. I therefore request you to come to Vrindavan and enjoy pastimes with me. If you do so, my ambition will be fulfilled. I have already described in brief Srimati Radharani's statement from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So in that ecstatic mood, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited many other verses, but people in general, they could not understand their meaning. The meaning of those verses was known to Swarup Damodar Goswami, but he did not reveal it. However, Sri Rupa Goswami has broadcast the meaning. While dancing, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to recite the following verse, which he tasted in the association of Swarup Damodar Goswami. Now, this verse is from 10th canto, 82nd chapter, when the gopis are meeting Krishna at Kurukshetra. And this is one of the verses that the gopis spoke to Krishna there. It has very, very deep meaning. It's going to be explained after this. So the beautiful Sanskrit of this verse is Ahushchate Nalinanava Padaravindam Yogeshwaraya Hridhi Vichintyam Agada Bodhai Samsara Kupa Patitottaranava Geham Jusham Apimanas Udiyat Sadhana. The gopis spoke thus: Dear Lord, whose navel is just like a lotus flower. Padaravindam. Nava Padaravindam. My dear Lord, whose navel is just like a lotus flower. Your lotus feet are the only shelter for those who have fallen into the deep well of material existence. Your feet are worshipped and meditated upon by great mystic yogis and highly learned philosophers. We wish that those lotus feet may also be awakened within our hearts, although we are only ordinary persons engaged in household affairs. So here the gopis are saying, we are engaged in geham, family affairs, ordinary affairs. And we're not great master yogis. We're just ordinary village girls. But we want that your lotus feet will be awakened in our hearts, although we are only ordinary persons. So this is now a small little explanation. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam. The gopis were never interested in karma yoga, in jnana yoga, or dhyana yoga. They were simply interested in bhakti yoga. And unless they were forced, they never liked to meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord, unless they were forced. Rather, they preferred to take the lotus feet of the Lord and place them on their breasts. And sometimes they regretted that their breasts were so hard, fearing that Krishna might not be very pleased to keep his soft lotus feet there. And when those lotus feet were pricked by the grains of sand in the Vrindavan pasturing ground, the gopis were pained and they began to cry. The gopis wanted to keep Krishna at home always. And in this way, their minds were absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Such pure Krishna consciousness can arise only in Vrindavan. And thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to explain his own mind, which was saturated in the ecstasy of the gopis. Now here's the verses he's explaining. Anyer hridoy man, mor man Vrindavan, mane vane ek kori jani, tahan tomar padadvai, karaha jadi uday, tabe tomar purna kripa mani. Speaking in the mood of Srimati Radharani, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, for most people, the mind and the heart are one. But because my mind is never separated from Vrindavan, I consider my mind and Vrindavan to be one. My mind is already Vrindavan. And since you like Vrindavan, will you please place your lotus feet there? I would deem that your full mercy. She's asking Krishna to place his lotus feet in her mind and heart, which is non-different than Vrindavan. You know, Prabhupada writes a short little purport here. He says, the mind's activities are thinking, feeling, and willing, by which the mind accepts materially favorable things and rejects the unfavorable. This is the consciousness of people in general, but when one's mind does not accept and reject but simply becomes fixed on the lotus feet of Krishna, then one's mind becomes as good as Vrindavan. Wherever Krishna is, there are also Srimati Radharani, the gopis, the cowherd boys, and all the other inhabitants of Vrindavan. Thus, as soon as one fixes Krishna in his mind becomes identical with Vrindavan. In other words, when one's mind is completely free from all material desires and is engaged only in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then one always lives in Vrindavan and nowhere else. Prananath Shunamor Satya Nivedana. My dear Lord, my Prananath, kindly hear my true submission. My home is Vrindavan, and I wish your association there. But if I do not get it, then it will be very difficult for me to keep my life. My dear Krishna, formerly, when you were staying in Mathura, then you sent Uddhava to teach me speculative knowledge, jnana, and mystic yoga. Now, you yourself are speaking the same thing, but my mind does not accept it. In Kurukshetra, you know, Krishna spoke one verse there. And in that verse, he's giving direction to the gopis, to Srimati Radhika. Actually, he's giving solace to their hearts. But at the same time, he's telling them that you are always my beloveds because you are always absorbed in me. And by your meditation upon me, you will attain me. So, Srimati Radharani is telling Krishna at Kurukshetra that formerly you sent Uddhava. He also suggested to us to engage in jnana and mystic yoga. And now, here at Kurukshetra, you yourself are speaking the same thing, but my mind doesn't accept it. There is no place in my mind for jnana yoga or dhyana yoga. Although you know me very well, you are still instructing me in jnana yoga and dhyana yoga. It is not right for you to do so. So Radharani is pleading with Krishna. Then Mahaprabhu is expressing her mood that she says, I would like to withdraw my consciousness from you and engage it in material activities. But even though I try, I cannot do so. I am naturally inclined to you only. Your instructions for me to meditate on you are therefore simply ludicrous. In this way, you are killing me. It is not very good for you to think of me as a candidate for your instructions. Then she's telling to Krishna about the gopis. The gopis are not like the mystic yogis. They will never be satisfied simply by meditating on your feet and imitating the so-called yogis. Teaching the gopis about meditation is another kind of duplicity. When they are instructed to undergo mystic yoga practice, they are not at all satisfied. On the contrary, they become more and more angry with you. Then he continues, the gopis have fallen into the great ocean of separation, and they are being devoured by the timingila fish of their ambition to serve you. The gopis are to be delivered from the mouths of these Timingila fish, for they are pure devotees. And since they have no material conception of life, why should they aspire for liberation? The gopis do not want that liberation desired by yogis and jnanis, for they are already liberated from the ocean of material existence. Vrindavana Govardhan Yamuna Pulinavan Se Kunje Rasadika Lila Se Brajer Brajajan Mata Pita Bandhugan Boro Chitra Kemone Pasharila. It is amazing that you have forgotten the land of Vrindavan. And how is it that you have forgotten your father, your mother, and friends? How have you forgotten Govardhan Hill, the bank of the Yamuna, and the forest where you enjoyed the Ras Leela dance? Krishna, you are certainly a refined gentleman. That means Vidagda Mridu. You have all good qualities, O Krishna. You are well-behaved, soft-hearted, and merciful. I know that there is not even a tinge of fault to be found in you. Yet, your mind does not even remember the inhabitants of Vrindavan. This is only my misfortune and nothing else. I do not care for my personal unhappiness, but when I see the morose face of Mother Yashoda and the hearts of all the inhabitants of Vrindavan breaking because of you, I wonder whether you want to kill them all, or do you want to enliven them by coming there? Why are you simply keeping them alive in a state of suffering? The inhabitants of Vrindavan, they do not want you dressed like a prince, nor do they want you to associate with great warriors in a different country. They cannot leave the land of Vrindavan, and without your presence they are all dying. What is their condition to be? My dear Krishna, you are the life and soul of Vrindavan Dham. You are especially the life of Nanda Maharaj. You are the only opulence in the land of Vrindavan, and you are very merciful. Please come and let all the residents of Vrindavan live. Kindly keep your lotus feet again in Vrindavan. Here's Prabhupada's purport. Srimati Radharani did not express her personal unhappiness at being separated from Krishna. She wanted to evoke Krishna's feelings for the condition of all the others in Vrindavan Dham. Mother Yashoda, Maharaj Nanda, the cowherd boys, the gopis, the birds and bees on the banks of the Yamuna, the water of the Yamuna, the trees, the forests, and all the other paraphernalia associated with Krishna before he left Vrindavan for Mathura. These feelings of Srimati Radharani were manifested by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and therefore he invited Lord Jagannath Krishna to return to Vrindavan. That is the purport of the Ratha Yatra cars going from Jagannath Puri to the Gundicha temple. After hearing Srimati Radharani's statements, Lord Krishna's love for the inhabitants of Vrindavan was evoked, and his body and mind became very much perturbed. And after hearing of their love for him, he immediately thought himself to be always indebted to the residents of Vrindavan. And then Krishna began to pacify Srimati Radharani as follows. Pran priye, shunamor e satyavachan. My dearest Srimati Radharani, please hear me. I am speaking the truth. I cry day and night simply upon remembering all you inhabitants of Vrindavan. No one knows how unhappy that this makes me. All the inhabitants of Vrindavan, my mother, father, cowherd boyfriends, and everything else, they are like my life and soul. And among all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, the gopis are my very life and soul. And among the gopis, you, Srimati Radharani, are the chief. Therefore you are the very life of my life. My dear Srimati Radharani, I am always subservient to the loving affairs of all of you. I am under your control only. My separation from you and my residence in distant places have occurred due to my strong misfortune. And when a woman is separated from the man she loves, or a man is separated from his beliefs, you cannot live for a moment. And just to keep you living, I worship Lord Narayan. Krishna is worshipping Lord Narayan to keep Srimati Radharani living. And by his merciful potency, I come to Vrindavan every day to enjoy pastimes with you. And I then return to Dwarkadam. And thus you can always feel my presence there in Vrindavan. Our love of him indifferent to my royal position. Whatever wives, sons, and wealth I maintain in the kingdom are only for the satisfaction of the Yadus. Your loving qualities always attract me to Vrindavan. Indeed, they will bring me back within 10 or 20 days. And when I return, I shall enjoy both day and night with you and all the damsels of Brajapur with the senses of Swarup. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to become fully absorbed in tasting the singing of Swarup Damodar. In emotional ecstasy, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sometimes sit on the ground and looking down would write on the ground with his finger. And fearing that the Lord would injure his finger by writing in this way, Swarup Damodar checked him with his own hand. Swarup Damodar used to sing exactly according to the ecstatic emotion of the Lord. Radha Govinda Jiv ki jai, Shri Gaur Aarti ki jai, Shri Radha Krishna Jiv Aarti ki jai. Kiva Jayo, Jayo, Gaura Chande, Aroti Keshoka. Jayo, Jayo, Gaura Chande, Aroti Keshoka. God.